Bene, buonasera a tutte e a tutti e
Good evening and welcome to this event. My name is Massimo Bernardi. I am the Scientific Director of the Anthropocene program of MUSE. And I'm particularly happy tonight to be with you to speak about these topics which are the core of the action lines of the museum. I will introduce our guests in a moment. Well, we live uncertain times, damaged times, as someone said. And from the viewpoint of the museum, apparently there is no exit from it. Data collected in all the regions of the world tell us that apparently there is no way out of this situation. We are the victims, we are the causes, we are the protagonists or co-protagonists of this circle, of this loop, and we see no exit from it. So we need to reflect upon the current times and starting from data and starting from research works. But we shouldn't stop to scientific data. We have the common requirement to reimagine and find a meaning in being in the world. And this is what we want, to find a meaning. Otherwise, what would be the sense of being here? What would be the sense of working as a museum in such difficult times? And this is the reason of this program, of the Anthropocene program of MUSE, which also includes a creative platform developed together with Stefano Kagol, who will help us in this dialogue in the second part, together with Paolo Costa, philosopher of the Bruno Kessler Foundation and also a friend of the museum. Now, this event is part of the cycle Anthropocene Great Event, an initiative proposed by MUSE, together with the 𝐬𝐴 Foundation and then Foundation Bruno Kessler, Foundation Edmund Mark, and University of Trento. And then we would like to thank our guest, Timothy Morton, who is connected with us from Houston, Texas. He is a professor at the Rice University.
Hello, everybody.
And we will give him the floor immediately. And any way of presenting our guest or introducing our guest is insufficient, is inadequate. But we want to explain to you why we wanted to involve him and to get in touch with Timothy Morton. Well, this idea of ecologism, as Timothy defined it, as an idea of rethinking the relationship between human beings and the environment. And as he says in Ecology Without Nature, an ethic based on love, excessive love, an extension of humanitarianism of the environment. So we need science, of course, and we move from science. This is our main pillar. But we also need to improve our knowledge and awareness of what is traditionally defined as something else from us. So a long process, almost 20 years. And this evening, Professor Morton, will invite us to think about a topic that is how you feel to be a living being, ask religion. And Morton will present the contents of his book, which is going to be launched next April. Hell is the title of the book, In Search of a Christian Ecology. So I give the floor to Timothy, and then we will have a Q&A session. Thank you, Timothy, for accepting our invitation.
It's a great pleasure. Hello, Trento. Yay! It's lovely to see you. What a beautiful space you're in. I'm in Houston, Texas, which is kind of an ugly space to be in. And it's where all the big oil companies are, you know. And we all know what to do, don't we? We all know what to do. We all know to stop burning fossil fuels really soon. And we all know maybe we should arrest the directors of Exxon. If anybody wants to get on a plane, I'm pointing in the direction of their office. Yeah, it's sort of over there. And all the other ones, like Chevron, right? And we could citizens arrest those people. That would be great. So how come we're not doing it? Yeah, how come we're not? Well, we are sort of doing it, but how come we're not doing it enough, right? And when I say we, what I really am talking about, people like me, people like you are fine, right? Europeans are kind of fine. But how do we get Americans to do it, right? Because if Americans don't do it, then Chinese people don't do it, and Indian people don't do it, and Russian people definitely don't do it. And for all of the beautiful things that are being done in Europe right now, in comparison, they won't mean very much. So we need right now to have a kind of planet level, planet scale action, right? To inspire people. Who are we inspiring? Joe Public, the guy who lives down the street from me in Texas, right? Joe Public maybe is a MAGA guy, and Joe Public is maybe also, probably he's a Christian, yeah? And we're not going to be able to stop him from being that, right? Before the world just bursts into flame. So just pragmatically, we need to talk to his Christianity. There's another big reason why that's a good idea, because it's actually also just a good idea in itself, but just pragmatically, we need to talk to religion. And there's one big reason why he's not doing it yet, why Joe Truck Driver is not yet supporting action on stopping fossil fuels burning, yeah? So it's, you know, it's people like me, really, you know, it's people like my friend Adam, who made a movie called Don't Look Up. I don't know if you saw this film. It's about a comet that's coming to destroy the Earth. Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence are these scientists, and they're trying to warn people, you know. And then if you open up a newspaper, for example, you open up the Guardian newspaper in London, you turn to the middle, and there's somebody like me, and they're writing an editorial, and they're saying, you're a bad person. You're not thinking about this right. You're not doing enough. And then this movie is also saying, you will regret it. You know, you'll be laughing on the other side of your face when you realize that the science was right. Yeah? And scientists come on the TV and they don't realize that in that environment, they are actually in a kind of competition of beliefs where the viewer is being asked to swap their belief with the scientist's belief. That's not what the scientist thinks. but it's because of the environment that they're in, the media environment, that this happens, right? So there's a big problem. And one of the big problem is people like me and people like that movie, we are all talking in the language of revenge. We're all talking in the language of, you have to do this, or this bad thing will happen, and you're going to regret that you had all these stupid ideas. The trouble is, Joe Truck Driver has got a great idea, which is actually, I'm so sorry to put it this way, but Joe Truck Driver knows something that people like me don't know. And what Joe Truck Driver knows is better than, it's better than what people like me say. Yeah? We say, you're going to be destroyed, you're going to be this, you're a bad person, you have to watch out. And Joe Truck Driver thinks, yeah, but Jesus loves me anyway. That's better, right? Even the most stupid version of that, even the most exclusive, horrible, right-wing, racist version, unfortunately, contains a little tiny seed of mercy, if only on the white male person who says that. So unfortunately, Joe Truck Driver has the perfect antidote, because they know there is a comet coming to destroy the Earth. It's called the apocalypse. Yeah? They know that the lamestream media is not going to cover this, but they also know that Jesus loves them anyway, so it's okay. The earth can burn in flames, and it's okay, because Jesus loves me anyway, and he's coming back to save me. If we don't talk to that feeling, then I'm afraid all the stuff that we do as Europeans, and I'm a recovering, unfortunately, European, because Britain left. You know, all that stuff, all that beautiful stuff doesn't mean anything. IPCC doesn't have any effect on Americans. They don't even see it on the TV. It doesn't even slightly register. They don't even look at it for 1 second. It doesn't mean anything. We need to start to talk to Joe Truck Driver. So we need to start to talk about Jesus. Very conveniently, Jesus is actually on my side. But actually, it looks like Jesus is on the side of some very bad stuff right now. You know, especially when you look at white, evangelical, right-wing Christian nationalism in the USA. What you see is that these guys are supporting Donald Trump because they think Donald Trump is Parsifal. I don't know if you know the story of Parsifal and the Holy Grail. Yeah, Parsifal, Wagner's opera, Hitler's favorite opera, Parsifal. Parsifal is a criminal moron who saves the Grail Knights from extinction. Yeah, Parsifal makes the Grail Knights great again. Right? Donald Trump is a criminal moron who is supposed to save America from, I don't know what. I think it's caring about black people, actually. I think that's what Donald Trump is trying to save America from. He's basically one in a long line of white supremacy people who are mostly just trying to hurt non-white, non-male people. So that's called fascism, yeah, where you know, in fact, fundamentalist evangelical people voted for Donald Trump not despite the fact that he is a criminal moron, but because he is a criminal moron, right? Jesus would come back in disguise this time as a criminal, moron, fat, American, blonde, aggressive, rich guy, because last time he was a thin, smart, kind, poor Jewish guy. That would be the perfect disguise. This is the problem. Yeah, we have a real problem here. We can't persuade these people. We have to do something else, and we have to do something else really fast. We have to blow their mind. Only miracles work. It's like when Buddhists tried to bring Buddhism to Tibet. Tibet was a country full of cowboys. It still is. Yeah, 900 CE. Tibet was a country of cowboys, and these cowboys didn't care about Buddhism. They were all Texans, right? Tibetans, Texans, same thing, right? Big mountainous country, rugged, individualistic, masculine cowboys. So they couldn't be persuaded. So along came, in the end, a tantric yogi. His name was Padmasambhava. And he did not persuade the cowboys. He just blew their mind. He resurrected people. He healed people. He tamed all of the demons. That's what he did. And that's why Tibetans, that's why we have the Dalai Lama, because someone blew their mind, right? So just pragmatically, whether we like it or not, we have to talk to Joe Truck Driver. We have to talk about Jesus. We have to say words that for academic me are rude words. You know, like when the Sex Pistols on the TV in 1977 said really bad words, and suddenly they were everywhere. People like me have to say what for us is a rude word. Pray is a rude word. Jesus is a rude word. Yeah? Resurrection is a rude word. Bible is a rude word. We have to say these rude words. We can't say those other words because actually Joe Truck Driver has algorithms that stop things with those rude words coming. So when Adam McKay makes tweets that say F Biden because he's not being strong enough, they don't even know because their Christian software stops it, right? We have to talk in their language. That's actually great because their language is actually our language. We've got a much better way of thinking about mercy and forgiveness than these people. We just need to retrain them. And this is actually great because what is beautiful about religion, instead of what is maybe oppressive about religion, is actually on our side. Okay, so that's the ad for why to do this, and that's the ad for why I wrote this book called Hell. Yeah? In the name of heaven, many people are creating hell. Right? In the name of a better life, sometimes in the name of actually bringing Jesus back, some people are willing to burn the earth. And literally, right now, there are two Texans, I call them frack boys, like frat boys, only they're frack boys. They literally do fracking. They are fundamentalists, and they literally say, if Jesus had not wanted us to burn the Arctic, he would have said something about it in the Bible. So we should burn the Arctic. We should get gasoline from the Arctic. Do you see the problem here? These people can't be persuaded by funny little diagrams from the IPCC. That doesn't mean anything. They have a much more sophisticated, I'm so sorry, much more deep, much more complicated, I'm really sorry to say that, idea. Yeah. And they know their Bible. So we've got to talk to these guys. So I wrote this book called Hell in Search of a Christian Ecology, and very luckily there is one. But before we talk about that, I'm just going to get you to do some meditation for a minute, because for many, many years of my life, I've studied Buddhism for maybe 40 years. And I talk about it a bit, but now it's time for me to talk about these things very directly. I can't just be indirect anymore. I have to talk about it directly, because we need a reason why. Yeah, we need a reason why to save the earth. We need a planet scale religion feeling. You know, we need the ecological version of Martin Luther King, I have a dream. And in fact, that is very relevant. Anti-racism is incredibly relevant. It's part of it. How we treat each other is how we treat the biosphere. So right now, people like me have to talk all the time about racism. We have to talk all the time about misogyny. We have to talk about civil rights all the time. It's not an option, extra. It's not an extra thing. It's the central thing. It's the core thing. Yeah. How we get along with each other is how we get along with the rest of the biosphere, all the other life forms. So this has got to be a planet scale thing which involves movements such as Black Lives Matter. So isn't it great that Black Lives Matter and Me Too and related things like that have appeared in our world? Yeah. Isn't it great that we had COVID and so we are a little bit more aware of ourselves as living on a planet together? And isn't it great that America, as well as producing horrible, apocalyptic, slavery-based, nasty stuff, can also produce cool stuff, right? Cool stuff, you know, like America makes cool things out of broken bits of Europe, or it just makes Europe great, right? Like Europe created this colony called America and created a huge pile of money based on slavery. But then some people in America decided we're going to do something different. So for example, the t-shirt, you know, it's a broken shirt, but everyone in the world likes this shirt. It's really cool. Like jeans, right? They like broken pants, you know, like distressed with holes in them, jeans. Everyone likes that. The blues, right? The blues, and therefore rock and roll, and therefore funk, disco, house, everything, right, is broken white Western music. Yeah, broken, but everyone likes the blues, right? Everyone likes that blues note. Yeah, Black Lives Matter, it's made out of broken stuff. Yeah, Me Too, it's made out of broken stuff. America makes great things out of broken stuff. America cannot be great, ever, because of slavery. It is not even a country yet, right? America, if it's anything, is from the future and is a model for a future way of being, okay? So that's what we need. We need a planet scale, religion size feeling for why to do this, right? Like you wake up in the morning and you think to yourself, you know what? Getting Americans to care about this and save the earth is the most sexy, incredible, exciting thing I ever thought of in my life. That's the feeling, right? Instead of, you're a bad person, you're thinking about this wrong, everything's going wrong, the kind of Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore, you know Eeyore, the donkey in Winnie the Pooh? People like me sound like Eeyore all the time, right? We sound really hungover, you know, like, oh, this is bad. You don't talk to your kids like that. You don't talk to your kids with the hangover mind. You get up out of bed and you get out of the fetal position and you go in the kitchen and you talk to them, inspire them to do their school day. Yeah. So do it to yourself. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, let's remember what it's like being alive. Okay, so I study meditation, right? Everybody sit up. Yeah, up. That means if you can, make sure your back is not against your chair like this, but up, right? Just up. Put both your feet on the ground, both your feet, yeah. Feel the ground. If you can't feel the ground, just feel your hand or your hands on your knees. Keep your hands on your knees, like that. All right? This is not a special thing. We're not doing anything special here. We're just literally connecting to feeling alive. Okay. and just breathe normally. This is not to do with any kind of special technique here. If you can, be brave enough. Have your eyes open. You're supposed to be seeing. And if you're very brave, have your eyes pointing out. Right? You can bring them down a little bit if you're scared. Bring them down. Just a little bit, so you're kind of looking maybe 2 meters in front. Your spine is kind of straight. Just breathe anyhow you want. Something's happening, it's called thinking. You're having feelings and you can feel slightly nervous, maybe feel strange. My back hurts a little bit. I'm worried about talking well, I want to do a great lecture, having all these thoughts. That's fine. That's called thinking. Your mind is supposed to do that. It's okay. Do not try to stop your mind. We're just going to notice your heartbeat. This is called mindfulness of life. Notice your breathing. Don't do special yoga breathing, just do normal. Notice the air on your skin. Notice the feeling of your butt on the chair. When you do that, you start to think, what is this? What does Tim Morton want me to feel here? What am I supposed to be feeling? Don't try to answer the question. Just be there with the question. It is very important for this lecture. The question is the answer. Understand? What is this? What is this? What is this? There was a rabbi, and keep doing it. There was a rabbi in Vilnius, in Lithuania. His nickname was the Genius of Vilnius because he was a genius. He lived in Vilnius. And he had a vision of God. And God said, do you want to have all the answers? Or do you want to have all the questions? This was in maybe 1780. And God said, do you want all the answers or do you want all the questions? And he said, what do you think he said? He said, I want all the questions. Why have all the answers? All the answers are the past. They've already been answered. The questions are the future. I have a dream. That's the future. What are you dreaming, Martin? What? You have a dream? Wow, I'm dreaming something. When you dream, it's your brain, right? It's just your brain going, just kind of vibrating all by itself, right? And that's because you're asleep, and that's when your body is just vibrating all by itself. It's just the zero, it's just the ground state, as they say in quantum theory, the ground state of being alive. Just be alive. Just be alive. It's funny, curious. What is that? What is that? Every single esoteric meditation manual on the planet, I don't care which religion it is, Jewish, Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, I've read them all, Hindu, every religion has a VIP lounge. And in that VIP lounge, they say, you know, all that stuff about God being angry and having to obey the rules, that was really just kind of to keep people under control. And what it really is this other thing. You are connected to directly the divine, the Tao, the Buddha nature, the Godhead, to use Meister Eckhart, right? Allah. Are connected to God. Every mysticism on the earth is saying, God is not some white male psychopath in the sky who mostly wants to get rid of you. They're saying God is this in this feeling somewhere. You know, if it's in yoga, it's like God is in the bindus. Yeah, if you do yoga, God is in your prana. It's in the little packets of energy inside your channels, the bindus. If you know what that is. God is in here somewhere, right? God is your life. And that funny feeling you're having of, I can't quite touch it, is the touching it. Yeah, every single esoteric, mystical meditation manual on the planet, please prove me wrong, is saying this feeling of just out of reach and I can't quite touch it and it's not quite there. You can stop meditating now. But stop. Yeah, just sit. It's okay, just relax. Every single one is saying that funny feeling that you're having, don't fix it. Don't fix that feeling. Don't fix that funny, strange feeling. Right? In Mahamudra Buddhism, it's called nowness. Right? And inside nowness is a feeling. It's not an idea. It's not a dot on a Wikipedia page. It's not a thing on a clock. It's a feeling of nowness. Right? And you can't quite put it into words. It's right there, this funny, what the hell is this? Right? Religion, in that sense, is the feel of biology. Yeah, no matter what psychological science says or biological science, religion is, as it were, if you're going to use a big grown-up sounding word, it's the phenomenology of biology. Religion is the phenomenology of biology. Right? Religion is not about some anti-life, anti-earth being who lives outside the universe. That's an idea. Yeah? You know, this kind of Christianity called Gnosticism, where they had a lot of meditation in those days. You know, basically it's a rude word, like anarchist is a rude word invented by Marxists to describe some communists who they hate. And Gnostic is a word invented by Catholicism to describe some Christians that they hate. But the basic idea in Gnosticism is that God is already in here somewhere, and we're trapped, right? We're trapped in the evil universe. And the evil universe is the physical body, and we are spirits trapped in this universe. Well, I think it's the opposite. I think, actually, we are trapped in a universe of really demonic ideas. We are beautiful, physical, biological beings, including our brains, including all the thoughts that come out of our brains, but we're trapped in a universe of ideas. This idea that God, or whoever that is way, 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 way far away, is because our body is way, 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 way far away. What do I mean? In the middle of the Milky Way galaxy, there is a black hole called Sagittarius A, right? It is a supermassive black hole, and like most galaxies, or maybe all galaxies, there's a supermassive black hole in the middle of our galaxy called Sagittarius A. Right now, Sagittarius A is closer to you than maybe the glasses on your nose or the shirt that you're wearing. because you're thinking about it. Sagittarius A is phenomenologically closer than your body. Your body is actually always the furthest thing away. And why is that? Because this is very simple. Brain signals about your body, which is basically also the biosphere, right? Like how you feel your body is how you also feel the biosphere, how you feel like you're a life form in a biosphere. And these brain signals always are a little bit late, right? They arrive, I don't know how many people can tell me, and you know better than me, maybe of some milliseconds or whatever late, right? There's you touch something and there is a nerve signal and that travels to the brain, and it takes a couple of milliseconds or whatever for the chemicals to be transduced into signals that then your brain can be like, oh, my finger's touching my hand, right? So what does it mean? It means this thing here, right, is the future. Because you're always, the information about it is always a little bit out of date. So this thing here, right now, nowness, is the future. So this thing here is always a little bit out of reach, like tantalizing. It's there, but you can't touch it. God is there, but you can't touch it. It's the same thing. Mysticism is talking about being a life form. Yeah, mysticism is talking about what it feels like to be a feeling, breathing, living entity. You know, and so that's cool. You know, that's a good reason, you know, to care about being a life form, because all the lovely things about religion, as opposed to all the terrible things about religion, are what it means to be a life form. And I think that might mean all the way down to maybe also plants, right? Because this thing, this delay, is default to sentience, right? And so beetles can have it, and birds can have it, and plants are sentient, as we now know, so plants can have this, right? There's some conference of plants and some plant version of the museum where someone like a plant, Timothy Morton, is saying this funny feeling that you're having, that you can't quite access the petals and the leaves and the patterns on your petals. That's it. Don't change it. That's it. Kind of plant Dalai Lama doing this right now, hopefully. Yeah, and so there's a whole lot of detail in here that I won't go into, right? But that's great, right? That's great. That means religion is on your side. Yeah, like if you're from a science point of view, this is not about saying there's a scientific explanation for the existence of God. It's not that, right? It's much better than that. It's saying that whether or not that's true, religion is the phenomenology of biology. Whatever it's about, that feeling, yeah, that feeling that's in the phrase, I have a dream, yeah, that one, you know, my favorite piece of house music is Can You Feel It by Mr. Fingers, and it is never described, right? Also, my favorite thing by the Jacksons is Can You Feel It? It's the same thing, Michael Jackson, right? Can you feel it? And no one ever says, what is the it that you can feel? Because it's this tantalizing thing, right? And Mr. Fingers, actually, in 1987, made that piece in order to put Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech over the top. And it harmonizes with it. You just go on YouTube and you find Mr. Fingers, Can You Feel It? Martin Luther King, and you'll see what I mean. And that's Martin Luther King going, I have a dream today. I have a dream. Before he's even told you what the dream is, he's already won, because he's already woken you up. And even now, even now, people who know that they are racist have an off-ramp for being anti-racist, because Martin Luther King gave them permission. Yeah, all of us are complicit in oil. All of us feel guilty and complicit and awful about oil. But we need a reason, we need an off-ramp from that feeling. We need another way of feeling about ourselves that is not about guilty and shame and contaminated. And we need to find that feeling now. And we need to be able to transmit that feeling to Joe, truck driver, who is also feeling guilty and contaminated. He's been twisted into using that feeling to hurt black people and women and trans people and gay people. But we can pull him back from that because we've got something very powerful, because we know what this is, right? So that's cool. And how come you can even do that? Because you're alive. And what is life? Life is an expression of the universe being a quantum universe, not a mechanical universe, right? Life is when chemicals that are kind of doing this all the time, right? Like this chemical destroys this one and this chemical becomes this one. It's a universe of revenge. It's a mechanical universe. It looks mechanical, but there's quantum theory, which is not mechanical. And because of quantum theory, time is not going forwards always. It's jiggling. Time is jiggling, like Carlo Rovelli says, time is going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, and it only just averages out to going forwards, and life slightly pulls it back all the time. Life is always slightly pulling that arrow backwards, right? This thing here used to be a baby. You know, it's kind of funny to think about that, but it was kind of the same. This thing here called Tim was once a little baby. So this thing, this bunch of chemicals here preserved itself. Why? Because of quantum theory. So this thing here is a huge magnified blow up of something beautiful about the universe, which is that this is a merciful universe. Think about it. Life is the universe having mercy on itself and stopping the revenge, right? Like the ground state, the minimum of mercy is, I think, actually, why am I going to hit you again? I don't remember. I don't remember. Why are we having this fight? I don't remember. I forgot. Right? The minimum of revenge, right? Is revenge, having revenge on itself. It's called mercy. It's like, wait, why? What am I doing? I'm holding this hammer, but I don't know why. I forgot why to hit you. Yeah? We live in a merciful universe where life is an expression of this mercy. Yeah, and human beings are a great expression of this mercy, because human beings have a taboo against incest, which is basically when the parents destroy the kids. Yeah, and if religion is about anything, it's about that. And that's why to care about life, it's a beautiful accident. Yeah, it's a beautiful accident. It's an accident because quantum theory allows for real, genuine accidents to happen. In a quantum universe, there can be quantum random numbers. These numbers cannot be predicted. What does it mean? The future can be different from the past. There can be true, genuine accidents. And evolution is based on accidents. Random genetic mutation is an accident. Sexual display is an accident. Symbiosis is based on accidental encounters between things. The reason to care about life is that it's a beautiful, gorgeous accident where beauty has nothing to do with pointing in the direction of being better or superior or anything. And it's not even to do with sexual reproduction. It is completely open. And in fact, it is trans. Beauty is fundamentally a trans phenomenon, which, if you read the book, is very much in the book. There is no point to the universe, but this is actually the reason to care about life. This is the reason to care about it, right? It's not the reason to give up in despair. It's the reason why it's beautiful, because it's a beautiful accident, right? And like, it's a universe of pure contingency. Yeah. The crucifixion of Jesus was a pure contingency, right? When he was going up there to the top of the hill, he did not look at somebody and go, wink, this is all going to make sense one day. It's all going to be fine. I'm going to come back and take revenge on these people. That would have ruined it, right? It was just this terrible, terrible, all the way through contingency, all the way through, yeah, the worst possible thing you can imagine happening to somebody, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. Even that, right, is an expression of the fact that the universe is a beautiful accident. So we have got a much better idea about religion than Joe Truck Driver, and we need to communicate that to Joe Truck Driver, and we need to do that now. Thanks very much. Let's talk about it.
Dunque, molte grazie per...
So many thanks for this speech. I immediately opened the discussion. We started from the need to be understood, meaning that we are in the Anthropocene, but probably not all of us perceive the Anthropocene at the same time. And here we have the issue of ontology or epistemology. And on the other side, we have this classical idea in the philosophical and theological thinking as to the great ideals which inspire humankind, including that of religion. And I would like to ask Paolo immediately. Well, that can be connected with other great ideas which give hope and not necessarily that of religion. And perhaps you can tell us how we can go on with this discussion, also with reference to all the different ways of conceiving religion or a supernatural ideal. Well, my task is difficult, but it is made simple by the fact that, as Tim said, what we are faced with, climate changes, is not an object like many others. It's a hyper object, which means that our thoughts will have to be hyper thoughts. So when we dare some hyper thoughts, there is a high risk. So in Tim's presentation, well, what comes to my mind is not a hyper thought, but it is something that has to do with the fact that sometimes we have to do with some extreme issues. And sometimes there are people who want to depolarize the public debate so that the discussion is not split into two, saying we are right, the others are idiots. So this is not the case. And this is very clear. A couple of things that I wanted to ask Tim relate to the positive aspect of his speech, not simply a strategy of communication, but this attempt to recover some aspects of religion in order to come to terms with this dangerous hyper object. No. I would like to focus on Martin Luther King's dreams because understanding the dream of Martin Luther King in our age, which is anti-utopian, it is very difficult. I interpret the dream in this way, in the following way. The dream of Martin Luther King is the dream of a person who thinks that mercy, love for the others, can be something that is a source of freedom, not only for us, but also for our enemies. It is the dream of unlimited embrace. It is the dream of universal empowerment. We do not want to win against the others. If we win also for the benefit of our enemies. So this incredible dream of empowerment is the gist of the dream of Martin Luther King. And I would like to ask Timothy if this interpretation is correct, because then I have a second question about mysticism meant as a reduction of our aspirations. And the first thing that I wanted to ask you is about this dream of radical transformation, which is beneficial not only for us, but also for everybody, also for those who currently seem to be out of the circle, impossible to save, so to say.
Yeah, thank you very much for saying that. I agree with you completely. I think the interesting thing about this transformation is that it is actually more, maybe one of the reasons why some religion can be a problem here, and especially actually people who don't think they're religious have this problem. Very often when I'm giving a lecture about ecology, people will say, but how can I do this? How can we? And I'm very glad you didn't put it this way, because actually, you know, when I also go to do meditation retreats with my Buddhist meditation teacher, someone will want to perform, it's called virtue signaling, right? Someone will want to say, how can I possibly become a Buddha? And the teacher is going, didn't you listen to anything I said? I was actually trying to tell you it's really easy to do it. Like Buddha is trying to tell you this is not a hard thing. You know, like Jesus is saying, go in this room and say this thing and do this thing. And actually, you know, it's not that hard. The lilies of the field, you know, like don't chill. Yeah. And part of it is like, what if it was too easy to do this? Right? What if it was too easy? What if this radical transformation was not about, I've got to somehow become totally different tomorrow, but actually it's, I just have to let go of some stupid ideas. For example, here's a stupid idea. Master versus slave. Yeah. This idea is conditioning a whole lot of other ideas. For example, subject versus object. Male versus female, masculine versus feminine, right? Active versus passive. Yeah, this idea is daft, right? It doesn't really work. It's just to do with reinforcing certain power structures. So what if it was actually easier to operate without this idea? All you have to do to follow Martin Luther King, Gandhi, is to let go of an idea or two or three, yeah, and actually it's much easier that way.
Se posso interloquire.
Well, if I may. Well, this observation goes exactly in the direction that I wanted to follow. Well, we heard about a revolutionary idea tonight, that is that religion is the phenomenology of biology. Well, I don't know if Tim knows this essay. Certainly he does. It's by Thomas Nagel, called what it is like to be a bat. And when I was reading that book, because the idea is that it is difficult to understand another form of life which has a different perception from ours. Well, every time that I read that book, I said, well, we understand something of the bat, and what we understand of the bat is exactly what Timothy described very well. That is the minimum fact of being alive. Well, if there is a thinker in our philosophical history who tried to transform this idea, well, that person is Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who in the history was described as the supporter of the good wild person. But what he wanted to tell us is that he wanted us to reflect about the contingency of our civilization. That is, many of the things who fill our existence today are the result of choices which happened and what we find in nature is something very simple also in our relations, and it is no chance that for Rousseau the human being is characterized by the love for him or herself and for the mercy for the others. That is very basic. And so I was curious to know from Timothy if in the end this mystical idea that we find in many religious traditions and that is summarized by a very powerful image, the idea that the infinite is like a circle and the center and the circumference coincide. Well, I'd like to know if this is what you are suggesting us to think about today.
Thank you very much. Well, I think a lot about that essay too. And when I first ever saw the title, it was in my first year as an undergraduate at Oxford University, and it irritated me from the beginning, this title, and slowly but surely I sort of realized what it is that irritates me about it. Because what is it like to be Thomas Nagel, actually? Does Thomas Nagel know what it's like to be Thomas Nagel? How can he say what is it like to be a bat if he doesn't even know what is it like to be me? And I bet you if you asked him, what is it like to be you? He'd be like, that's what it's like to be you. And that's enough of what it's like to be a bat for you to be pals with the bat, right? You don't need to share the bat's world this much. Otherwise you would become the bat, actually. You just need to slightly overlap with the bat's world, right? In order to do this, you have to be a scientific person who believes that there can be amounts of truth, right? In a modern scientific age, but also in an ancient shamanic age, the kind of age that Rousseau was inspired by, actually the difference between true and false isn't so strong. They overlap. You can have amounts of truth. Truth can be modal. For example, the Pfizer vaccine is 95% effective. That means that it's 95% perfect, right? 100% is impossible, yeah? When Einstein writes E=mc², he knows that that might be wrong tomorrow or 200 years from now or 2 weeks from now, right? He knows that, but he knows that it won't be completely wrong, it'll just be less right, right? Like Newton is still true. If you want a slingshot around the moon, you can use Newton, right? Einstein didn't make Newton be false. Einstein made Newton be less true, right? What Rousseau is missing is this. What Rousseau is missing is the idea that actually human beings, like all other life forms, are actually based on kind of playfulness. And if we've lost anything, it's that we've lost this quality of ritual play, right? Like in some societies, they're communists in the winter and they're monarchists in the summer. But we maintain our roles all the time, and we think ritual play, which is, you know, religious ceremonies and Christmas and whatever, are restricted to certain points in our life. But actually, what if the illusion was the idea that we live in this grey, boring, unplayful, serious world? What if that was the big problem here? Yeah, to sort of go to the final part of the question, that's a beautiful image, and I hope you can send me where you get inspired from this with this image, because I only just heard it, but I think maybe it's something that is in the air, and that I'm quite ignorant, and I don't know exactly this image, right? The way I like to think about it is a little bit more along the lines of the Buddhist concept of mandala. Yeah, a mandala, the ultimate mandala is not a circle with a center. It's actually, it's a paradoxical thing because it does not have a center and it does not have an edge, right? And this idea that I was having in this book called The Ecological Thought was actually based on this idea of mandala, this idea called the mesh. Yeah, the interconnectedness of life forms does not have a center, in the sense that human beings or whatever, or some single-celled organism, are not the basis or the pinnacle or whatever, the center of that system. There's no center to it, and therefore there's also no edge to it, so that you can't really stop the contextualization of life, right? Life depends upon the Earth, which depends upon the electromagnetic shield around the Earth, which depends upon being in a solar system, and so on. And so literally, physically, tape measure, right? But also phenomenologically, there's no center to some extent. But I think maybe what you're saying is the same thing. It's just a different way of imagining the same thing, to say that the center and the circumference are the same. And it connects to this thing that I'm saying, which is that the thing that seems really far out, right, that ideology tells you is some kind of supreme master in the sky, right, who you can never obey properly, and that's why you have religion, because you have to never obey them properly, right? That's the ideology, that actually it's here. You know, according to this idea that God is the master, you can invent the opposite, right? Imagine a servant who does everything you say perfectly, right? A master that you can never obey, you can never be the perfect servant. So imagine, what if there was a perfect servant? What if we could get AI to do what we do, only perfectly? With AI, we could do it perfectly. This is every single story about Satan ever, right? That Satan is this perfect servant who does everything you say, including all the stuff that you forgot to say, right? This is also the biosphere to some extent. You wash your hands with soap, hoping to be clean, but this makes the bacteria evolve, right? You buy an avocado, but you bought it from Chile, so a lot of fuel was used to give you the avocado. There's always a side effect. You can never get it right. When you're working with the biosphere, you're making a deal with the devil, is what you're doing. And so in a way, you've got to bring, so you've got another way of bringing the center, which is working with the devil, because you're a physical being, is imperfect, together with the notion of the divine, which is the circumference. Yeah, there's a beautiful poem by William Blake called The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. And this book that I just wrote is also the Tim Morton, Marriage of Heaven and Hell. Who's getting married? Heaven, which is ideas about the divine, is getting married to hell, which is the physical being. Yeah. a physical being in the biosphere, we live in hell. Yeah, the only problem with fundamentalist Christianity is it's actually the wrong kind of Satanism. You know, the British Rail used to say when they were still in existence, you know, we couldn't run the trains today because they had the wrong kind of leaves on the track, right? A lot of evangelical Christianity thinks that the devil is God, pretty much, a lot of the time. And that really it's just the wrong kind of Satanism. What we really need is we need to make a deal with like a friendly devil. We need to make friends with the devil. Yeah, the devil isn't that in a way. You know, you can't really get rid of evil. You are the evil. You know, if you think evil is this thing over there, then that's Hamas, right? Like evil is a thing that I can destroy. You know, that's America bombing Afghanistan, right? And so the common popular idea that you think is religious, which is that I can get rid of evil, is the noise that evil makes. Knowing that you're the goody, you know, this idea that you're the good person. That's what the Nazis think, right? That's what the coup plotters think in the USA. They know that they are the goody. That's what being evil feels like. Thinking that you're a bad parent is what being a good parent feels like. Thinking that you're a bad philosopher is what being a good philosopher maybe feels like. Being, you know, thinking that you're a little bit evil is what being a good guy is, right? Thinking that you're a bad country that has lots of racism and misogyny and so on in it is what being a good country feels like. Wanting to feel like the perfect, best, goodest country is evil. There's a big paradox there, which I can't get rid of.
Posso solo dire due parole?
I'd like to add a comment, if I may. There's a nice song by the Grateful Dead, Friend of a Devil. And I would also like to stress that the universe, as described by Tim, is merciful, is playful. This is very important too. And the book I took the image of the center in the circumference from tells it all. It is Cusano's book, De Docta Ignorantia, the learned ignorance, the ignorance of the learned. Very well then, so we can throw the floor open for questions. We can take questions from the audience. I believe there's a traveling mic. Maybe Carlo and other colleagues may you may want to voice a question. This is a good time now to take questions. Well, first of all, let me thank you all. Let me thank the audience for being here. So we're going to take questions from the audience now and then from home, from those who are following the lecture online. So I'd like to raise a quite straightforward question. I've broken stones and I very hard stones. Now, very directly, I would like to ask a question. Why is this spirituality connected to a religion? Why a Christian ecology? Why and not an Spinozian ecology? Why not any other ecology? Why Christian? Why should we be looking for a Christian ecology of all different ecologies?
Well, I don't know if you should be. That's just what I did. And the reason why I did it was because of this dilemma that I have, which is that people like me don't know how to talk to the USA yet. And if we don't talk to the USA, then the whole planet is screwed. And so I'm just doing this in a way because I want to talk to the USA, but then I find out all these things and I think about it, you know. But I don't think I can claim that, you know, the reason why to find this if there is such a thing, Christian ecology, is because it's better than something else. You know, it's just my own pathway, and I'm very surprised by this pathway because I've been studying Buddhism for my entire adult life. I've been studying Buddhism for almost 40 years now, since I was at least maybe 13, 15 years old. And so I thought I knew everything. But I'm not saying this is the way to do it. I'd be very worried about that if I was saying that. But it's a little tricky, you know. It's a little tricky to say what I mean. But I think one thing to think about is that, you know, Christianity, of all the ways of thinking and being on Earth right now, has got a really bad reputation, justifiably so. And my job is a little bit, I'm a deconstructor. Yeah, I do the thing called deconstruction, and deconstruction doesn't mean destroying something. Deconstruction means you go inside the thing and you disarm it from the inside. It's a little bit like in the film 2001, Dave goes inside of HAL 9000, the computer, and pulls out the cassettes. Yeah. If I can do that to Christianity, then it's much easier to do it to some other religious force that is much less. Right now, it's very malevolent. Yeah, people are justifiably, there's a whole army of people in America, for example, called ex-evangelical. They are people who have been abused by a massively abusive power structure that isn't even ready to admit the sexual abuse, like the Catholic Church is beginning to admit the sexual abuse, but the evangelical church is refusing to have anything to do with it. And it's a very coercive structure. And people in their teens and 20s are now leaving that church, and they're totally freaked out about it. And what they say they're doing, they're calling it deconstruction, actually. And I just think I accidentally wrote a book for them.
Vediamo se ci sono delle domande dalla...
Let's see whether there are questions from the floor again. Stefano. I was greatly impressed, Timo. You really exceeded any expectation. I think that we should recall that it is the project that wanted you here, that was some kind of religious project. It is a platform of contemporary art and a science museum as well that put together this project, because we believe that contemporary art can decodify your hyper objects. We Are the Flood is the name of the project, and Tim Morton is part and parcel of this project. He's the DNA of the project. So we carried out this project for some 2 years, and you are somehow the end of this project, and we're very, very pleased. It was very great to have you, thanks to this project. The flood. The flood is something that is a common feature in all religions. So whenever we talk about religion, whenever we talk about politics, well, politics is all important, because without politics and religion, we're never going to find an answer. You need politics, art, and religion. You need them all, because this is part and parcel of what mankind is. And art, something that I trust absolutely can help. Timothy, I know that you're very close to contemporary art. Contemporary art is close to you. There's a very tight link. So can you expand on art? I'm an artist myself, and We are the flawed all artists and curators, and we'd like to think and imagine more desirable futures. We'd like to change. The use of religion is part and parcel, because religion, again, is part and parcel. And as a matter of fact, we are the problem and part of the solution. The solution is pretty dramatic. And I can tell you that I have been a witness of the disappearance of glaciers from the Alps. As a kid, I used to climb the mountains. I used to look at eternal glaciers that seemed to be some kind of religious feature, and we thought that those were going to be eternals, and they're not. So this is something that is before our eyes to see. Can you comment on that? Can you comment on art as well, and the role that art can play?
I'll do my best. I live in a house that is owned by a beautiful museum. I was giving a talk there yesterday. It's in my street. It's called the Menil Collection. And it's one of the biggest collections of surreal art and also contemporary art. And it's totally free. And people love going into this museum, and they're so grateful to the Menils for not taking this art and putting it somewhere like New York. Right, Houstonian people are very proud of this museum. And in this street that I live in is also the Rothko Chapel. This is the last work of art by the painter Mark Rothko, and it is a chapel designed by Philip Johnson. He's Jewish, and Dominique de Menil, who commissioned the work and worked with him, is a Catholic. And this is a place where people meditate. This is also a place where people do concerts. This is also an art gallery in a way, What's interesting about the space is that you cannot put it into a box, right? The reason why some people freak out in that room, some people who think that art is a little bit evil, and these people might be artists, right? Because they might have taken theory class, and they might have read in their theory class an essay called The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction by Walter Benjamin. And they might have gotten the wrong end of the stick about that essay that's saying that, ooh, the aura, it's evil, you have to destroy it, right? People go in that room and they have a powerful experience of a thing they call the aura, and they get so scared and angry, they have to leave the room in under 2 minutes, 30 seconds. I have an experiment going, right? Even artists, right, can be religious in that way. Artists can think that art is ideological bullshit, right? That's like quite a common avant-garde art thing to think. People in that room who have those thoughts cannot be in that room for more than 2.5 minutes. I've brought so many people in. Right? Why? Because it's not an art museum, and it's not a chapel. It's kind of weirdly in between. It's like art itself and religion itself, right? But beyond and above the record store labels, art and religion are both dealing with beauty, which always has a bit of disgusting in it. If it's going to be really beautiful, it has to be a little bit disgusting, doesn't it? Especially ecological beauty, and also it has a little bit of death. The beauty is basically a signal that you're going to die. I can't explain it, it would take too long. And this is also the case with being a scientist. Being a scientist means you allow yourself to be horrified, disgusted, amazed, confused, in the name of something beautiful. And a scientist is really a kind of expanded artist. The word scientist actually comes from the word artist. There was a group of them meeting at the Royal Society in London in 1820, and they all decided they would call themselves scientists because artists call themselves artists quite recently, right? In that period. So what am I saying? So my friend Björk went in there, yeah, with my friend Arka. And so you know what she did, of course, and Arka, they lay on the floor with their arms out for 45 minutes because they loved it. They liked this feeling. They liked this feeling of being influenced by something that, without their consent, right? Something, let's face facts here. Art is doing something to you without your consent. It's demonic in that way, right? Especially if you cling to an idea of subject versus object. The idea that an object could influence you like that is kind of scary and evil, right? But that's because you think inside it's master versus slave, and now you're the slave and the art is the master. It's not the art's fault, it's your fault, because you think you need to be the master all the time, right? So instead of that, we need to get rid of this paradigm of master and slave, right? This is the paradigm that's causing all this problem. And art and religion are really kind of, beyond and above the concepts about them. They are very interwoven things. So I wrote this book called Hyperobjects, and it made ecological art cool, because like before that, quite a lot of it was a kind of, Thoreau and Aldo Leopold, and it was kind of American and hokey, and kind of maybe hippies did it, right? But that made it cool for people to do, right? If I can get the cool kids, we're all the cool kids in this room, right? I think. If I can get the cool kids, some of us think we're the cool kids. I think I'm pretty cool. Just look at me. If I can get the cool kids to think things like this about religion, spirituality, that's going to be much bigger than hyperobjects. The effect on the world is going to be much bigger than doing hyperobject art, actually. And so this title, "We Are the Flood," is very interesting, right? Because the flood is a physical event. Yeah, it's Santorini exploding, and many cultures in the Mediterranean making things out of that, right? It's an event. You can verify it with science, yeah. But also it's a religious event, because saying we are the flood. I made this piece called "We Are the Asteroid," but I think "We Are the Flood" is better than "We Are the Asteroid," because it's talking to the book of Genesis, and it's basically saying we are the evil that we see in the world. We are the evil physical force that we see in the world. We are the evil. The first step in being a good person is knowing that you are the evil that you see in the world, right? There's a real connection between this hyperobject art and this way to turn a little bit towards religion, spirituality. They do not fight each other, actually. They don't fight each other. You don't have to suddenly change your mind, right? You can still carry on doing the cool stuff. But wouldn't it be great if the cool stuff actually changed Joe Truck Driver? Yeah? Joe Truck Driver, because we've hoovered up all the people who really believe this stuff, right? We've hoovered up all the people who really know that global warming is real and we've got to do something about it. But we need Joe Truck Driver to be excited about it. So imagine Joe Truck Driver arrests the directors of Exxon for you, yeah? And then reverse engineer, what did you have to do in this world to get him to do that? And then you can figure out what the art should be, right? Because really art is just a polite word for propaganda, isn't it? And propaganda is just a dirty word for art. Or maybe art is a dirty word for propaganda. I can never figure out which way around that should really go.
Grazie, Timothy.
Thank you, Timothy. Certainly, art is also propaganda. Very often it is close to capitalism, to the worst that exists. But art, well, I think that it can be what you are, visionary, able to make magics in order to change the world, because this is what we need. So in conclusion, I thank you again. It was super. Thank you.
Thank you. Yay.
Well, apparently there is a question. Just 1 second. There is apparently a question. Well, I'm not very able to speak in front of people. I'm shy. Anyway. Well, I listened to your speech connecting ideology, religion, art. Well, as far as I'm concerned, this interconnection is very interesting, but then there is a lot of positionality when you speak about that. For example, you mentioned the white men very often, and in front of a panel of white men, I ask myself, to which extent am I represented? So my question is, what can we do to promote inclusiveness? So how can we relate with Joe, the truck driver, or other people who are not included? So that was my question.
That's the question. That is the only question, actually. That's the question that I ask myself now every day in everything that I do. Am I doing enough to decolonize my head? You know, am I doing enough to fight the racism? Yeah, am I doing enough to include as many different types of people and different beings, you know, in my thinking and my work? And I have the responsibility for this as a white guy in particular. I have to take full responsibility for that and actually do it. You know, so that is the question. There are so many ways, right? There are so many ways. I don't know whether I'd like to list a particular set of things to do. It's funny, people often get into this part of a Q&A where they want to know some specific instructions, and I don't do specific instructions. I do how to feel about it. That's what I do. I do how to feel and why to feel. You know, specifics we can all find out, right? Gosh, there are just so many different ways to answer that question. I wrote this book in part to attract the attention of extremely right-wing people, so that they would stop for a few seconds attacking poor librarians in the state of Texas, where they are now banning books from children's schools for even slightly mentioning black people, sex, racism, and so on and so on. And, you know, somebody, a Russian agent actually accused me on Instagram of being woke. So I got this necklace made. You know, I was like, great, finally somebody put the stigma on me. I'm going to make a necklace and wear it. And I'm encouraging everybody who talks like me in the world of environmental thought, right, to work with racism and misogyny, transphobia, homophobia all the time. Yeah, forget the polar bears for a minute. You actually forget the ice. You've got to talk about racism now. So that's what I'm doing. And you know, so I hesitate to suggest a specific set of instructions for you. We need to talk about that in more detail. If anybody does want to talk to me, because we are connected now in some way, then you can always email me, and my university email is easy to find at tbn2@rice.edu. And it'll be nice to talk, because like anybody else who does my job, I'm pretty lonely. I do it on my own. And so it's nice to feel connected to other people. Thank you for that question.
Hello. I was wondering, so to build this sort of Christian ecology, wouldn't it perhaps run the risk of creating some hate, as it happened with many other things, anti-Semitism, for example, because that could be exploited by someone to their own advantage?
Yeah, right now I'm talking to all my Israeli friends, my Jewish friends, my friends in Lebanon, about what's going on, the horrible things that are going on. I suffer from depression. I suffer from depression. Depression is, I suffer from severe depression. And this is what I've learned about thoughts in your mind. Ideas of any kind. It's like the physical world. Anything can be weaponized. Anything. Christianity, anti-Christianity, answering the question well, answering the question badly, refusing to answer the question. Anything can be turned into a weapon. If you've seen the Bourne Identity film, where Matt Damon uses a big biro as a knife, you know that in the physical world, with the correct application of force, anything can become a weapon. And as a depression sufferer, I know that anything I think can turn into a suicidal thought. Anything I think can turn into a weapon against me or other people. Knowing that is the safety. Yeah, knowing that is the safety. Trying to find the right idea that couldn't be turned into a weapon is probably one of the most dangerous things you can do as an intellectual person. Trying to find the silver bullet that is not affected by the possibility of violence is the possibility of violence, right? The fascists know they're the good guys. They know they found the idea that isn't contaminated by this thing that you just said. They know they've got the perfect idea. That's why they are walking, talking weapons, right? So I couldn't agree with you more. Anything can be weaponized, anything. Agreeing with me can be weaponized. Disagreeing with me could be weaponized. Anything can be weaponized.
Very well. We thank you. We thank Timothy Morton for being with us.
Thank you, Trento.
Grazie.
So lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Grazie Timothy.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Timothy, Stefano, Paolo, Carlo, and all the people behind this project. Alice, Lucilla, Patrizia, thank you all. And thank you for being with us. Thank you.
E a presto. Potete mettere la musica?